Shukran. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Look who's here with me. Just got my drink and we're gonna talk about some things. Okay, okay, have fun. Bye bye. Okay, this is like my favorite drink from here. Oh. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for all of the support that you've been giving me on my previous videos about research and my publications. So I have some really exciting news. My second paper was recently published in the Egyptian Journal of Medical Human Genetics. So I want to take this moment and just share with you what new experience that I've gained, what happened this time that was different than last time, and I feel like some of this information you will find it useful. So thank you so much for all of your support. If you're interested in my videos, please consider subscribing. So a couple of days ago, I did receive an email that my paper has finally been published by Springer in the Egyptian Journal of Medical Human Genetics. My topic is on COVID related, but mostly I'm summarizing a hypothesis about low iron and whether or not it mitigates infection, which is a topic that has interested me a while ago, about iron and how different iron status affects whether a person is susceptible to some infections. And I went ahead and applied this information to whether or not is it related to other pandemics and other infections, and just how our human body and our human history has evolved around the elements of iron, which is something that is so interesting. And I scoped out so many perspectives, namely genetic ones and evolutionary ones, and there's so much that you can learn from this review. So I really hope that you can take a minute to try and read it. Well, more than a minute, it's quite long, and I hope that you can read it and be informed about this very interesting hypothesis. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the things that I learned the second time around while trying to publish, and something that I think will benefit you if you stay till the end of the video. I'll explain to you some good selection of journals that you should consider if you're trying to publish as a student or a young doctor and you don't know where to start, especially if you are Egyptian or if you are located in Egypt. I have a list of journals for you that you can try to send out your manuscripts to. So stick around to the end and I will discuss more about that. So I sent this manuscript on September the 4th. So if you guys know that my other previous paper got published September the 4th. So I was kind of like a little bit depressed because I wasn't sure if that previous paper was going to get published. And then when it did, I got so excited and I was like, okay, let me finish this paper and send it off somewhere else. But I had this manuscript done a while ago, around the same time as the JAK inhibitor paper, which I will also link in the description down below. And when I sent it, it had received some rejections, a lot more rejections than the JAK paper did actually. I believe I went through about 3 or 4 rejections. 3 of them were editorial rejections, meaning the editor rejected the paper. And one of them had gone to reviewers and then it was rejected from there. So for the first journal that I sent to, the reason I got so bummed out was because I had found the most perfect journal for my paper. And this journal is basically covers up the whole scope of this paper, which is from a genetic and infectious and an evolutionary perspective, that I'm taking this iron theory and going with it in that way. And then when I sent it to this journal whose scope is 100% this topic, and it got rejected, I kind of felt like so bummed out, because I was like, if this journal is not going to accept it, then who is going to accept this paper? So I felt a little bit bummed out the first time it got rejected. Then I sent it to a couple of other journals and then they got editorial rejections. But the reason I actually got delayed in the process of publishing this actually came from there is this service that some journals provide for you if you get a rejection, and sometimes it's quite useful. It's called a transfer or a desk transfer. So sometimes when you send in a paper and it gets rejected, it'll go to the transfer desk, and what the transfer desk does is that it looks for other journals by this publisher that might match the scope of your paper. So for the most part, it's sometimes useful because they will give you like a journal you didn't consider, and they'll say, if you agree for the transfer, we'll send the paper to them, and you don't have to make any adjustments to your manuscript. So the reason why sometimes this is beneficial is because you save a lot of time when it comes to preparing your manuscript min awal wajdeed to another journal. So you can save yourself so much time for that. For a second, I thought it was appealing to do that. I had tried it before in my previous experience with a different publisher, and the problem is they sometimes send it to a journal that asks for money to publish an article processing charge. So sometimes it's not that useful. But in this journal, the majority of the journals have a hybrid type of publishing, so that means like I don't have to pay, but my paper is not open access. So I figured, okay, let's try it, and they gave me a recommendation of 2 journals, and I said, okay, just send it to one of them. One of them was like an internal medicine journal, but I personally didn't feel that it met the scope of my paper. So part of me was just kind of like, I'm just gonna send it and see if it works, if it doesn't, or whatever. So a lot of time was wasted actually in sending it to the transfer desk, just because I felt lazy to prepare the manuscript from the beginning and making adjustments to how this journal wants it, rewriting a cover letter, things like that. So that stuff can take like a lot of time. But anyway, so I sent it, I agreed to the transfer, but then this transfer didn't end up working. Like I got a rejection from there. Then when I got my JAC paper accepted, I was like, okay, let me take a look at this manuscript one more time and try to find a good journal. And I couldn't find a journal, namely because I didn't know the kind of scope, like what journal to look for that matched the scope of this paper, because it was so broad. I had targeted the viewpoint from a genetic perspective, evolutionary perspective, and then an infection perspective. So in my mind, originally, I was looking at more infection or microbiology journals. But then I figured, okay, maybe a genetics perspective will work. And this is the highlight of this video, if you're still here, which is I was able to find a couple of journals with the recommendation of one of my professors of journals that are sponsored by the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. I'm going to leave the link in the description for you below. If you have a manuscript and you are having trouble with fees and open access and things like that, there are some journals that are part of Springer, and you may be able to find something that matches the scope of what your paper is about. So for me, I was able to find the Egyptian Journal of Human Genetics, and I figured genetics kind of matches the scope that I'm working on. So I refurbished my manuscript a little bit to focus more from a genetics perspective, so it matches their scope a bit better. And I sent it to this journal, but there are so many other journals. I believe there's the Egyptian Pediatric Gazette. There is another one for gynecology. I think there's for the Egyptian Journal of Medical Human Genetics, the impact factor is 1.4. So that's like really good for me, and I was totally satisfied with sending to this journal. And you might find something that matches your scope if you're having trouble finding a journal, and if you're worried about costs, if you're Egyptian, or if you are in an Egyptian institution, you will not be paying anything at all for fees regarding publishing. So that is something that is so great. So I sent it to this journal, and overall I think I am totally satisfied with the experience. I found that this journal worked really fast with frequently updating the editorial manager. So if you have any experience with publishing, you know that every second you are checking the editorial manager, which can be very stressful. And a lot of the time, some journals don't update, or they update very late, and you don't know what the status is or what's going on with your manuscript. But this journal, they just kept on updating. So overall, I'm really satisfied with this experience, and I'm really happy that this paper got published. It is huge. This paper is a behemoth. I had to scope out about 120 and even more so references when making this paper. Really, like, it was the toughest review that I had to make because I didn't know just how deep the rabbit hole goes with this topic. So the whole perspective is so huge. I could only cover the genetics perspective, like I've mentioned, the evolutionary biology perspective, There's a lot to learn here. There's a lot to digest in this paper. So I'm gonna leave it in the description for you, and I really hope that you can check it out if you have a chance. And I'm gonna leave as well the list of all of the Springer journals that are part of the, that are sponsored by the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. So if you have a manuscript and you are struggling to find a good journal to send to, consider sending there. I really hope you guys take a minute to read my paper, and if you have any questions, feel free to send them to me and I will try my best to answer them. And you know, I'm just learning as I go with this journey, and I'm happy to share all of my information with you guys. I'm gonna end this video here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.